it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love to you who are really diving deep and rising above and really seeking peace, harmony, resolve, and closure in your life to try to understand and really determine where your relationship is at, how to get support, how to gather the tools up in your toolkit, in your tool belt, to try to really understand sort of part the dust, part the ways that have kind of convoluted your vision, your understanding, your perception of relationships, and really try to emerge and rise above some very difficult and painful situations and relationships with someone who is borderline, someone who is narcissistic, or someone who is psychopathic. And I want to focus in and zoom in on a viewer question we got in, and that is really, what is the difference between a covert narcissist and a quiet borderline individual? Which is a great question. And really, let's look at some of the similarities. I mean, in that there's a personality disorder, there's a pathology going on, there's an issue. There's an issue where basically you're going to be experiencing problems. There's going to be rifts and problems in the relationship. Well, what relationship doesn't have problems? Okay, but of course, but when we're talking about really severe questions and issues that are disruptive in the relationship, where you're not getting your needs met, there's a stone wall of communication. There's a lot of things going on behind closed doors where you don't know where this person is, what they're doing, how they're feeling. They're retreating, or down to other areas of the house, or they're never out there to be speaking with you, or they're never very proactive with asking how you are or engaging in activities together. They seem to require a lot of space. They seem to require a lot of lack of communication, very, very few words, and maybe some hostile emotions, or you feel that there's really kind of an inner life that belays their outer life. So, really in a personality disorder, especially the cluster Bs, when we talk about this, there's some issues going on within that individual which tend to result in a projection or an alienation or an isolation of individuals who are in their world. And it becomes oftentimes a weighty burden onto others in their world to try to cope with their personality disorder. So if you are feeling burdened, if you are feeling distracted, if you are feeling you are made to feel less than, if you are feeling inattended to, if you're feeling like this person's reactions don't merit the situation, if you feel a heaviness, a lethargy, you feel like you're just exhausted after being with them, chances are then there's something going on where there's an incompatibility with this person and you. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not seeing the good in people. But if you're finding that this is repetitive, there are certain behaviors that you feel that you are being targeted of, or you're on the receiving end of, and it's not helping your situation, your relationship, your life focus, your life purpose, your destiny. In fact, it's actually detracting you, detracting you, and basically causing you to not fulfill your life purpose or feel comfortable with expressing yourself, fulfilling your desires, knowing what your values are, and not feeling ashamed for being yourself, or being able to focus on the things that you need to do, that you not only that you need and want to do, but you required for like really your personality growth. I mean, if you feel that these are some issues, this is some good things to resonate and check in with yourself and how you're feeling inside around this person, because your body is the subconscious mind. Your body knows oftentimes what the mind won't share with you. The subconscious mind is really responsible for about 95% of our physical body, our physical processes, your heartbeat, your breathing, your walking. A lot of these things are what we call automatic pilot. These activities are run by the subconscious mind, and oftentimes a lot of the emotions are also directed. A lot of our cognitions or thought processes are also automatic, habitual, or become unconscious. And our beliefs about ourselves and our belief of how we interact with others and what we deserve to receive from others, or in our life, or in relationships, or how we pursue our careers, or the other talents that we develop from ourselves, are oftentimes influenced by the environment and people around us. And And then so we're basically told, or we're absorptive like a sponge, from the energy, from the messages, from the behavior and treatment of these other people. So especially around the covert narcissist or the quiet borderline, there's this feeling of being on the defensive with an individual. And we're going to talk about this in a moment and how it relates to the physicality, the emotions, the cognition as an individual who is perhaps dealing with someone with this sort of personality disorder, or perhaps you might be feeling like you have some of these qualities as well. So the covert narcissist, the main differential is that with a borderline, there's more a propensity for impulsiveness, rage, the stormy personality, the person who just erupts out of nowhere. You're not going to get a lot of that with the covert narcissist. And in fact, oftentimes, it's like the emotion under lock and key. It's like Fort Knox. I mean, this person, 3 to the left, 10 to the left, right, 31 to the other side. I mean, like a combination lock, you can't figure these people out. No matter how hard you try, you try to get them to open up or share feelings with you, or, subconsciously try to, get your needs met with these individuals by clamoring around or saying, I need you to do this a lot, or a lot of these statements, which it pulls this out of you to try to, meet in the middle with a covert narcissist and to pay attention to me. I'm here too. What about me? Can you get off the selfish horse for a moment and attend to me? And not that you're being needy, but there's a real sort of ignoring in one ear, out the other that goes with a covert narcissist. And they're often at times manipulative in the way that they want to be the ones in power and in control. And more so power, whereas the quiet borderline individual really wants to have a control over aspects in their environment, people, your thought process. You'll oftentimes feel a disruption in your own thought process because this individual is oftentimes not coming out from a natural sort of communication. Oftentimes their communication is so laced with anger, hostility, negativity, and this sort of inner self-loathing. Really, feeling like garbage and worthless themselves, that they feel that to really quench that feeling, they need to have so much control over their environment. And so if they can keep everything, in place, then they don't feel this sort of confrontation from others who really want to interact with them at that heart soul level. And I would say that, the narcissist can have an insecurity about being exposed or found out or being human or, being less than perfect. Oftentimes it is just their reprieve, they will oftentimes just keep so much to themselves. And the quiet borderline also will be very resistant to communication. And when they do, oftentimes, they might be very impulsive and, lash out at people where out of anger. And so you'll see more of this sort of a lot of unpredictability, where from the covert narcissist, you're not going to get this unpredictability. You might see these subtle things like, why is this person, darting off, and why are they never here? I mean, it might be more of what you acknowledge, just through kind of feeling like a sleuth work. But with the quiet borderline, you're going to feel these sort of rage outbursts. So you're going to feel very much on the receiving end of hostility and sort of a bizarre a lot of false accusation and sort of outburst from these type of individuals. So it's the black and white thinking. It's all this or it's all that. If you're targeted by a borderline, in other words, is they've just made their mind up for unreason, for anything that's not even oftentimes based in reality, but they've made their mind up that you are no good, you are this, you are that. They are jealous of you. They're just, you don't have a chance. You don't have, you don't, as the saying goes, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell. No matter how hard you work, you can't please, you can't change this person's thinking. They're very rigid in their thought process, and they are very much needing to control. And when this is threatened, when they are, called upon to have kind of an interaction or, a sort of real heart-to-heart, you're going to get they have such a fear of abandonment and control that they're going to lash out at the very people who can provide them the best support, listening, compassion, and empathy. Oftentimes those are going to be the people who are targeted with the false accusations, the yelling, the screaming, the slamming, the doors, the sabotaging of you. You're going to get a lot of this rage outburst, and oftentimes their life is very much like a wonderful viewer had sent to me, it is like they live their life from one crisis to another. Even though they're very quiet, you might not know what's kind of bubbling underneath the surface. These individuals, it just seems like from mayhem to mayhem to mayhem, from crisis to crisis to crisis, problem to problem to problem, complaint to complaint to complaint, awfulizing and catastrophizing, and it's always the attention onto them, and that's how they get their control. Now, the covert narcissist, it's a very sort of quiet, aloof, and sort of disdainful, quiet, assessment of others in their environment. And if they don't engage with you, they just, you get this feeling, this sneer that, you're not good enough, or, you don't have the right job, or you're not wearing the right clothes, or you're not eating your food in the right way. They seem to make these grave assessments over others where they're critical. And, so there's a lot. I mean, we can go on for a lot of content on this. But, oftentimes the narcissist more oftentimes does not mind being alone, the covert narcissist. In fact, they might really desire a lot of alone time, a lot of what would seem to be isolation, and they tend to isolate others. So, just kind of being very neglectful. And you have to basically storm them down to try to, did you do this? Did you feel this? Do you want this? They're not their emotions, are not very readily apparent. You have to pull it out of them with a jackhammer, basically. Whereas the quiet borderline, they have such a need to control, and they fear that others are going to retaliate against them, or leave them, or turn against them, or it's just they're constantly working to keep other people on a shoestring, as they just keep people on the line. They're constantly trying to keep people in check, constantly trying to keep people, towing the line. So they can be great leaders in this way, but they oftentimes are trying to control all this. And I think it's a very difficult, more painful experience for a quiet borderline than a covert narcissist, because a covert narcissist, they don't have a lot of empathy. So if they've hurt you, neglected you, they don't really think that they've done anything wrong. They're not going to really own up to it. So it's very difficult for them oftentimes to, be prone to treatment or improvement in the relationship, because they just don't see it. I am the way that I am. I'm interested in myself for this, and I really don't need to be there for you. That's your job. You should be able to do like I have, and you should just be able to go out and take care of yourself and not need people. And you could be a totally different type of personality, and they're just not interested to get to know people. Whereas the quiet borderline, in terms of their assessment of people, they very much need people, and they're always trying to keep so if someone is not there for them, they're going to be very hostile, and they're going to be more reactive. So, and oftentimes, they can kind of get the fact that, I do kind of blow up. I am harsh on people. I am critical. I'm critical on myself. In fact, a lot of my perpetual feelings about myself in life are really burdensome and troublesome. So the quiet borderline, I think, is more aware of the fact that they got something going on, and I would like to really learn how to fix this. I think they have more of a desire and inclination and a higher, success rate for improving their, and becoming more flexible once they become aware of it. And then they let go of some of these stories that they tell themselves that so-and-so is trying to, do this to me, and the false accusations. If they can let that go with time, then they can be a little bit more present and, really have a little bit better, closer relationships. And so whereas, the covert narcissist is not really that same stormy, uncertain, unpredictable. They more just keep their life together for themselves. They really don't care who it takes away from. It's just what's required for them to live. So it's a very unique self-assessment, and they don't really They might have, this degree of insecurity, and they're very, very into, keeping that quiet, elegant demeanor together for themselves. They don't want to ever appear ruffled. And they'll push other people away if they do feel that way oftentimes, or they'll be very needy in those situations and require a lot of others. So it's really a lot of the hot-tempered that you see in the borderline, who is very susceptible to rage. I think that the false accusations that really typify the difference between a quiet borderline individual and a covert narcissist. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.